Okay, so the P. Diddy trial is now in day 3, Sean Combs. And it's unbelievable. I mean, it's just like, I want to stress again to the audience, we must distinguish before we get the legal instructions between disgusting, filthy, pervert, cad, asshole, and criminal. That's really what this trial is about. I think even the defense cedes point one. They have to. They have to. There won't be a juror in that room that can stand Sean Combs. But the question here is whether he broke the law, and even your humble correspondent is open-minded to being persuaded that there wasn't a technical legal violation.
Day 3 of the Diddy trial. Cassie is still on the stand, and we are learning what a true and vile POS he is.
Yes, I will speak the truth. This topic is extremely difficult to cover because all criminals. When you take a look at a lady like this, I begin to question myself why it took her so long to come forward with this. Why now? That is a question that passed through my mind for a very long time since this started. From the testimonies I got, day 3, it clearly proved one thing. At the end of this video, you are going to find out what exactly is going on. If you've been following me, you realize I'm dropping a single video about this whole situation every single day while I continue to post other clips like I do daily. If you love what I'm doing here, please subscribe, share the video, and if possible, check if your notification is on.
Now, the media has now filed a request to see the videotape of the freak-offs. And the parties are objecting, saying they don't need to see everything. I mean, like Cassie doesn't want them to see it, and Diddy doesn't want them out. And the judge says he's leaning towards releasing them because there's a little thing called the First Amendment. But of course, the media is like, we want to see the freak-offs. Show us the tape. That's what the media's position is. She lists the awful man. She said she stayed to keep him happy. When you're in love with someone, you don't want to disappoint them. But as the years passed, even as she still sought to please him, she recognized he had become increasingly abusive, beating her and orchestrating ever more degrading sessions that made her feel like her career was no longer music, but performing in his satisfaction. Here's the thing. She testified, she was asked, the cross has begun, about why, like whether she told him that she didn't want to do it. And the testimony, as I understand it thus far, has been basically no. She said she would do it. And they have text messages of her saying to him, like, I can't wait for the next freak off. I can't wait to do it. Like, I might not be able to do it today because I have a red carpet. And she testified about how she had, and it's like she did have to go to the red carpet with a black eye. I think it was after that Intercontinental one we saw. But the defense has text messages from her being like, can't wait. I love it. You're like, when's the next one? And so this has the real danger for the prosecution of morphing into a Harvey Weinstein-esque case where it's only a crime if he forced you. If you guys are just freaks in bed who wanted to do this stuff, yes, there's a question of the prostitution element. But he's not being charged with abuse, with assault. And a lot of the viewers wrote in after our discussion yesterday saying, what do you mean? He beat her. It's on tape. Yes, I know. He's not being charged with that. That's not one of the charges. The charges relate to solicitation of prostitution or like arranging the transportation of a prostitute, and RICO, racketeering, a criminal enterprise. So it's relevant if there's a crime of prostitution and relevant if there was a crime on which the statute of limitations has run called assault. But they don't have to actually prove any of that. And he's not exactly being charged for that. But if this is consensual, or at least if Sean Combs believed that it was consensual, he could skate legally. And that's my impression so far. I very open-minded to this going another way. Your thoughts on the cultural impact of this trial and just thoughts on what we're learning now about one of the most famous people in America.
Yes, every single day we keep learning something new. I have a couple of videos I'm going to show you. If you've been following this channel, you realize I've been following what is going on with this trial. Day 3. When you take a look at this, the first point, Cassie attempted to herself in 2023, right before going to rehab for trauma And this, she got 20 million from Diddy in the civil lawsuit settlement with Diddy after asking 30 million. That is the second point I learned why she decided to come forward after all these years. Prosecution asked her, "Why are you here today?" She answered she was tired of the guilt and wanted to finally do the right thing.
I mean, he should skate if that's the case, right? I mean, it's not criminal, and it's not part of a criminal enterprise if you're a scumbag. And sometimes it's very hard to separate those things in situations like this. I mean, I saw the tape from the hotel. Nothing about that surprises me, considering what we know about his character. And as you said, Megyn, it's like we can disassociate these things and say, you are a horrible, horrible monster. And that is clear. And his life is over. I mean, whether he goes to prison or not, there's no way he's going to be allowed back into the club of celebrity. It just can't. I mean, recalling that he had these white parties in the Hamptons, and, Martha Stewart is going to these things. This is not something that's just in the hip hop world. And that is gone for him forever. But whether or not he's been in jail, I don't know, for a year or something in Brooklyn, whether or not that is justified, I haven't paid really close attention to this because I have a life and I try to limit my Diddy, Puffy, whatever the hell he's called, consumption. But there is a thing that at the sort of heel end of that kind of Me Too movement, where it was getting a little troubling, and I'm not saying that this is comparable, but there would be times when people
feeling Salem-y.
But yeah, when it was feeling salemy in the sense that, that was a bad relationship, or that person was a jerk, and it's like that's not a legal kind of thing. This is a next level of that, and it's gross. And my freak-offs aren't like this at all. I mean, I have an iPad where
2 minutes at best.
Yeah, very gentle.
No,
there's
it's
no
very
baby
fast.
oil. Yeah,
I'm like Woody Allen. I'm like, maybe a minute and a half, and it's done, and everyone's happy, and we read afterwards. It's like a book club. But we do. We're reading Willa Cather's My Antonia now. It's great. There is a moment when you look at this stuff and you say, the text messages. We saw that with Armie Hammer. We saw that with the pitcher from the Dodgers. So many of these things, the text messages always come out and paint a different picture, and we have to hold off on that. But if it is just having gross and maybe hiring a male prostitute or whatever, it's like the feds, this big raid, him in jail for it. It could be also that there's a lot more to this.
Not alleging any force. He testified that there was a male prostitute or whatever, escort. I don't know how he goes by.
On the stand, and we are learning what a true and vile POS he is. We saw text messages that Cassie showed us from the night of the Intercontinental.
The way the situation is turning out, I'm even scared. Yeah. He cannot recover from this, even if he's not guilty. There is this lady that was inside. She put out a video analyzing the whole situation. She actually said something on this video that drew my attention. I saw that video. I didn't want to bypass. Let me show you. But before I do that, I want to address something. People are different. There is someone on my comment section yesterday. They want me to continue to cover this Camille situation every single day. No. I want to put out videos that I'm sure that I know that the informations I'm putting out are okay, reliable sources. I don't just want to create videos because I see people get a lot of views on that. So if you don't see me covering that topic again, understand, I want the case to start back, then I will continue to follow that. Not just creating videos because I like to create. If something comes up, I will show you.
And her husband was actually in the courtroom listening to this very disturbing testimony. I was seated right behind her husband, and you could see his hands were sort of balled up, and he was trying to contain himself to hear what happened to his wife. So she described about 10 years of emotional, physical, and her participation in what they called sessions during a freak-off, which would be with an escort. And what she also described is that she met him when she was 19 and he was 37.
So young.
So we're talking about a huge, huge age difference.
That is the situation. What I want to see, I want people to be looking at both sides. Yeah, she was an adult already. I believe if something is going on with you for this number of years, for 10 years, and you are silent, then I don't understand.
Hearing case, it's I did for a living, and I will tell you that it is probably the most disturbing case I've ever heard in my career.
D-list, past its prime, wannabe version of its old self. Speaking of totally out-of-touch leftists posing awkwardly for the camera, did you see the
See any video after this that is just for the YT algorithm.
Over the past week has been overwhelming.
To end. Right is right and wrong is wrong.
These kids in here and resolve this issue is called conflict resolution.
Again, the evidence is still coming in.
This is definitely a self-defense case because it always is one until you look at the facts of the case and compare the two. You have to compare who was the initial aggressor.
Bedroom, because she's fearful of what might happen to her.
Followers for anything, and then the
Registration Act is
talking about this man kill.
My summary of the first 100 days is that
if film and TV productions continue to
first term, and you will be very.
Somebody has to say it, so let me be crystal clear.
Once again, the field was littered with Kardashians.